I'm glad you're here. And Happy New Year, a time when many people make resolutions like, I'm going to write that novel, or now is the time I rewatch all 7 seasons of Cagney and Lacey, or even, this month, no Strombolis. Every December I go all in on Strombolis, but it's a new me, Stromboli free, baby. To which I want to first say, I wish you luck on whatever path you choose for a better you. And secondly, to say you don't have to go no Stromboli ever again. Instead, just choose not to have a Stromboli for breakfast. And then when you get to lunch, well, maybe just no Stromboli for lunch. Snack time, maybe it's something other than a Stromboli. And dinner, we'll just repeat that mantra. And finally, that pre-bedtime snack. Well, maybe don't make and then eat an entire Stromboli before bed. And then, as you close your eyes to drift off into gentle slumber, you can see that it's all Stromboli baby steps. And those baby steps can go for miles, years, even decades. But it starts with one. My point, if there is one, sure, you'll find new ways to fill your life. Ways that may have seemed alien. And okay, it's not going to get better than that. Are you kidding me? Fill and alien in the same sentence? I mean, that's serendipitous. Serendipitous? I mean, come on. All right, let's get right to it. The film is Philly Alien. The guests are recovering alcoholics, and this is VH Us. Hello, and welcome to VHS, the podcast where each episode is about a film and the guest has the profession or experience, in this case that's really strange, portrayed in the film. I'm your host, Dirk Marshall. As always, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at VHUS_podcast, and original art, etc. is at VH-US.com. I'm joined in the studio by not one, but two guests, John Staley and Jerry Wagner Jr. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Now, you're returning guests, and you're the first duo I ever recorded, and the first returning duo, so there you go. Still, it's a great title to have. We previously recorded Dr. Sleep together and discussed one specific aspect because you both co-host a podcast called A is for Alcoholics.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes. Of which I'm a very big fan. So, John, if you don't mind just breaking down what AIFA is for everyone.
A is for Alcoholic is a program. It's my spiel. The program about recovery, going through the alphabet of alcoholism one letter at a time. It was basically our gimmick is the show is about our alcoholism, our subsequent recovery, and keeping sober every single day. So the gimmick or the hook on the show is that we go through the alphabet, and we do 2 seasons a year, once a week, and so I think What was last? TU? Did we do U? Was for
Something
U was
just
for
came out.
You.
It was U for we did undue suffering. So we kind of just pick a theme or something that's on our mind or something to do with our sobriety or recovery or alcoholism, and then we talk about that concept just in those letter orders. And a lot of times, it's just the two of us doing our best to get through the day and talk about things. And the fact that we've known each other for 24 years and we drank for 17 of those, I think 18 of those, a lot of them together, is what makes, I think, the show more dynamic than if it was two people who had just met talking about alcoholism, which I do interviews with people as well that I find engaging and interesting online. And, but I think that it just brings well, I mean, you're not an alcoholic and you enjoy the show. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it just brings a different perspective that you don't get very often from recovery podcasts.
Well, one of the things that I really like about it is that, of course, you're talking about alcoholism, but if you took alcohol out of it, you also talk about just like your own rituals, the identifying what's going on with your body and why you're doing the thing you do in response to that. And I just appreciate that because anyone can apply that to their life. Like, why am I stressed? Why am I anxious? What can I do about it? For some, it's alcohol, and for others, it can be a myriad of other things. Some healthy, some not so much.
We all have obsessive addictions. Yeah, it can be alcohol. It can be food. I mean, it could be, having a movie collection of horror films. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's different for everyone, but yeah, I appreciate that. We try to keep it. I don't want to say we keep it general because I mean, Jerry and I, we talk about our lives specifically, he and I, but it is all those things that comes. It's not just I need to drink, I need to quit drinking, and
Right.
how do I do? There's a
Well,
lot
and
more
because
to
of
it.
your friendship, I think that it's not just all heavy stuff. Like you will have funny memories, you'll laugh together. I mean, there's the friendship at the core of it. So, like, even if things do get heavy in a moment, almost right around the corner, there's some levity. And so I think that that's just something to give people a heads up for if they should. I mean, they should listen, but if they don't, that's something that I appreciate about it as well. The recent episode that you
Thank
did
you.
about it was about addiction to fame.
Yeah.
That was a masterpiece of an episode.
Whoa. Well,
Wow,
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, the guest was Coda, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Old friend
and
of ours.
So there's 3 friends then on that episode, and it's just an interesting topic when you're talking about in these politically charged times, just the idea of addiction to something that's not alcohol related, but something like fame and what these people are getting from that and what the people addicted to that addict are seeing. And I highly recommend anyone go back and listen to that one. Do you remember the title of that? Was it just...
That was called Trump's Fame Addiction.
There it is. There it is.
I mean, it's really, narcissism, enabling, all that stuff, denial.
Yeah.
So yeah, it doesn't have to be alcohol. And honestly, I have issue. It seems kind of suspicious. People who have never had a drink. Doesn't that seem weird?
Yeah.
I mean, I understand people who drink. I understand people who have drink and say, I don't need to drink anymore.
Right.
But like that you've never touched anything. I mean, I'm not here to judge, to each his own, but it's always like, really? That's weird,
Yeah.
man.
No one ever gave you that little cap full of something at a barbecue, you know?
Right.
That seems suspicious to me. Is there a Patreon for the podcast?
Patreon.com/AIFA.
And what kind of stuff do you put up on there?
What we do is you get the episode out early,
Okay.
always, every week. And then we will do occasional, I'd like to say monthly, but I cannot make that promise.
Okay.
Especially Jerry's in the middle of a big move and there's lots of other stuff going on. But we do movie reviews ourselves. And so we take a movie that has to do with alcoholism and we kind of just break it down from that aspect of, is
So
it
just
legit?
Barfly over and over and over.
Yeah, pretty much Barfly. And then Muppets Take Manhattan. You do that one a lot too.
Well, you know what's
Dumbo.
funny is who's the
And
guy in
Dumbo.
Muppets Take Manhattan? Jason Segel.
Yeah,
He's a recovering alcoholic.
Oh,
there you go. Bam.
so
you should have him on the podcast.
Dude, there's always a drunk in there somewhere, right? There's always just a drunk.
Yeah, if I hear someone on a podcast that's sober or in recovery, I'm always like, ooh, they should be a guest on those guys' podcasts. Like,
Right.
I tweet at people all the time.
Yeah.
I don't hear back from many, but I tweet at them all the time.
That's what
I'm
it's all
still waiting
about.
on Richard Lewis to give me a call back. But
Dude, John was tweeting at like Elton John and like
oh, there you go.
Elton John, I tweeted Sir Anthony Hopkins, all of them.
You tweeted Ellen DeGeneres. I don't think she was an alcoholic though. I think she's
I
just
think her-
addicted to being mean.
Yeah, I
to
think her
people,
wife was
yeah.
having some issues, and I was like, hey, if Portia wants to come on and talk about it. I don't know, but
Okay.
yes. So I mean, I just throw it out there. You never
Yeah.
know.
And your Twitter and Instagram handles.
I think at A's for Alcoholic. I think
Okay.
on Twitter it's AIFA Podcast.
Great.
There's some. If you go to at A's for Alcoholic, it's some old Twitter page.
Okay.
It doesn't make any sense. I don't know who this woman was or is or if she even exists anymore. But it's
I
like
hope she's okay.
I hope so too. It was like I think it was like some X-rated Barbie or something like that was so yeah,
Okay.
I don't know anything. I think it's a dead Twitter page. I don't know how to get dead Twitter handles.
I don't know either. Jerry, you're relocating, but you're also a tattoo artist and a
Right.
painter. Where can people see your works?
All of my stuff is on Instagram. I don't do Facebook, and I just use Twitter to just watch the dumpster fire.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
So my Instagram is at Jerry Wagner Jr. And mostly lately it's been a lot of paintings because of COVID. I haven't really tattooed since March of last
Yeah.
year. or this year. God,
That's
Yeah, it was
crazy.
this year. So, I should be taking it back up again when we move to Arizona. Hopefully, if the numbers start going down in the next year or two,
Yeah.
I'd like to return back to work. Yeah, but I have been loving painting. I do a lot of commission painting, so I've been painting everybody's pets.
Yes, I loved that.
Thank you. It's very out of character for me, but I'm finding this new life in like painting dogs and cats. Like I'm enjoying animals more. Like I look into their little eyes and I'm like, you have a little personality. You're a rascal. Like, what's your deal?
It is very out of character for him. I
Yes.
remember when he first got that dog, he's like, I fucking hate this dog.
I hate that dog.
I don't know why I got to live with this stupid animal. And then this cat shows up, and I fucking hate this cat. And you're like, God, I love painting these dogs. It's so relaxing in the garage.
Can you imagine if you could go back in time to talk to like Drinking Jerry and be like, one day you'll wear a Fitbit and paint animals?
Yeah, he'd be like, dude, get the fuck out of here, dude. You gotta. Who is this weird skeleton scarecrow guy?
I love it. The reason I'm joined by Jerry and John is because we're brought together by the film Phil the Alien from 2004. Was this a first time watch for you two?
This
Yes.
was. I had never heard of this before. Yeah.
So I chose this for a specific reason. One is that I absolutely love this movie, and two is because I've never seen it sober. This is a film that was one that my friend Aaron and I would get 40s and watch Phil the Alien. It was like something we did, and we would quote the whole movie. And I hadn't seen it I couldn't even tell you the last time I watched it. So to watch it now with a purpose and remembering it was really interesting.
Yeah.
So we'll get to that. The premise is a hapless extraterrestrial, played by Rob Steffenwick, finds adventure after his ship crashes in Canada. At the time of recording, it's available on Amazon, iTunes, and on DVD. I would love to see a Blu-ray with commentary by Rob and Joe Flaherty as the Beaver, personally. Let's put it in context. The director is Rob Steffenwick. If that name sounds familiar, it's because last season, Chris Connolly of Ministry and I sat down and talked about his second film, Suck. That's a real thing that happened.
It sounds like a beautiful life you lead.
Wow,
Yes.
dude. Yeah.
Super weird. Rob did Phil the Alien in 2004, Suck in 2009, something called Anxietyville in 2015 that I can't find, and he's done a lot of TV as well. Cinematographer D. Gregor Hagee has 101 credits, including Suck, Phil the Alien, Anxietyville, and Cobra Kai.
That's new, right?
I don't know if you guys have watched Cobra Kai
Oh,
on
yeah.
Netflix.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that YouTube Red. That's I don't
Yeah,
have that.
yeah. And then it bounced to Netflix, and then it blew up. The editor is Warren P. Sonoda and Rob, actually, so they did that together. Our actors will cover quick. Rob Steffenwick wrote, directed, edited, produced the film, stars in it. Next we have Joe Flaherty from SCTV, Detroit Rock City, Who's Harry Crumb, One Crazy Summer, and played himself in a deleted scene in Anchorman, which I think love to see that. Nicole DeBoer is in this film. She was in Phil the Alien, Cube, Prom Night 4, and pops up in the movie Brain Candy. So, yeah, I don't know where, but I'm excited to go back into that one. I've been looking for a pharmaceutical company to have on the podcast, but just no answers yet. Then Graham Greene, who everyone knows as the indigenous person from every movie, I think. Anytime they needed someone that was Native American.
Yeah.
Dances with Wolves, Maverick, The Green Mile, Die Hard with a Vengeance. You know, the classics. Boyd Banks is the dad in this. He was in Dawn of the Dead 2004, Jason 10, Black Sheep, and American Psycho 2. And that's our cast. So let's press play on Phil the Alien. The film starts with a father and his son in a hunting cabin. The father says, sometimes a man needs to be alone. The dad's played by Boyd Banks, and he's drinking.
Your mother, she had an answer for everything. She was quick as they come in her gender, God rest her soul.
Mom's not dead.
But still, this one simple fact eluded her quick mind. She could never grasp the fact that sometimes a man needs to be alone.
Sometime a man needs to be alone.
That's it. You understand? I don't have to explain it to you.
Is this one of those times?
And encourages his kid to leave, but says leave the shotgun. It's a dark, dark time in the hunting cabin.
All right, so right off the bat, I gotta say, I did not know what to expect from this movie. My wife's like, well, I'm gonna watch this and go through all my nail polish and makeup so I can pack it up. And I was like, well, I don't know what we're getting into with this. Just so you know, like, I'm doing this for a podcast. And immediately when he's just like, I don't know. There's a lot. It just hit me immediately with that line where he talks about like your dear mother, God rest her soul.
Yeah.
And the little boy's like, Mom's not dead. And I like laughed out loud. Yeah. The darkness immediately grabbed me. I was like, okay, I'm in it. Like the production value, you can tell it's like a passion project, probably.
Yeah, super.
You know,
indie.
these people. Yeah, very indie. But the minute and then he followed up with "Leave the Shotgun," I was like, yeah, I think I might enjoy this movie. Yeah.
I thought something was going to happen with the shotgun at the. I thought it was going to get gruesome right off the bat, is what I thought.
No.
But I love that it's like, you know, I wrote down in my notes, a man needs to be alone. ... to drink.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, the father's clearly an alcoholic. And prior to your times with alcohol, did either of you have alcoholism in your family?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's like our family crest is like
Yes,
a bottle
both
of
of us.
tequila, man. Yeah.
My mother wasn't, but both Jerry's parents were.
Both my parents and my grandparents. Oh, man. I'm like a Connect Four of alcoholism. I used to say at meetings, I'm like, I'm a legacy alcoholic. And they're like, yeah, fool, we all are. But, you know, for me, I thought I was like, this goes all the way back to like my great grandparents, you know?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
But I never had a shed moment with my dad.
No, you didn't go hunting?
We didn't go hunting. We didn't drink together. There was never any of those moments.
I also get the feeling that though it's a hunting shed, this is where he lives now.
Yeah.
Well, later we find out he hasn't had a job in 17 years, so yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just living in that shed.
The kid does leave and sees a UFO land. Cut to inside a bar, and we see one lone man asking for another drink, and he's an angry, surly drunk.
I'm a complicated man, and I have many problems.
I think you should leave.
Fine.
Good.
You're gonna have to kill me.
I beg your pardon.
If you think I am walking out of here without a drink in my hand, it ain't gonna be easy for you.
And I like this interaction between Wolf and the drunk. It's very adversarial. John, you've worked on the other side of the bar. Is it difficult to deal with inebriated people?
I think, well, yes, it is. It's intolerable, incorrigible. It can be. I wanted to say one. You know, bartenders don't polish that many glasses.
What?
It's because there's nothing much to do, especially you're like, and I assume, you know, in a movie setting, you have to have some kind of action, some sort of purpose for being there. But yeah, I mean, I've dealt like that with people like that before, and you know, one of two things. At one point, he's like, well, I mean, I don't know if you're going to go through it in your reading, but when the drunk says, "Kill me or give me a drink,"
yes.
And you're like, well, get the fuck out of here. Or, you know, it's all about mitigating risk and mitigating, you know, conflict. That's the thing that I've always learned, you know, with all of this stuff is bartending is what is the least amount of conflict that I can do in this situation, but also not back down because you don't want to be a pushover.
Sure.
And a lot of times, just get the person a drink and, you know, find another way to get them done with get them out. Yeah.
You two both covered on one of your episodes that you would, at least John would siege a bar, get the shots in, and then head off to drink like at home. I think you were saying on one of the episodes. Were either of you like lingering in the bar and being surly drunks, or you were more like you're on a mission, you're a professional, you're gonna go in like Mission Impossible style?
We would always linger and surly.
Okay. Yeah, we would always linger, but we were surly with no threat. I mean, it was me and John.
No.
It was like two overweight dudes who were into Morrissey. Like, what were we going to do? Like, cry you to death? Like, But yeah, we would linger, but we were not, I would say we weren't very threatening. I was definitely an aggressive drunk at some point, but it was all puffing. You know what I mean? It was all huff and puff, and no houses were being blown down.
Yeah. If I was ever big and boisterous and loud, it was more to be funny or shocking or, you know, but it was never, the aggression was not geared or aimed toward anyone in particular. I mean, that's not true. There were always some, and I blacked out plenty, so I don't know. But as far as lingering in a bar like that, I remembered bars like that and sitting in them at like 4:00 in the afternoon. And
Sure.
and I've sat in bars like that for like 10 hours.
Oh yeah.
Like just nothing to do, man. Got the day off. We're gonna drink. We got money in our pocket. So yeah, I've been in those bars for sure.
But you don't miss it.
No, not even a little bit.
You can have
know
conversations outside of bars now.
I don't miss it at all. I mean, I know what that bar smells like. It smells awful.
Oh yeah. When they stopped allowing smoking, that's when it really changed for me. Like you could see the walls and the ceiling and everything, and you're like, "What am I doing here? Like this is a crime scene."
Yes.
Yeah. It's a crime scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. The stank took a front seat, man. Absolutely did.
Oh man.
Put your hands up!
Next, we see the kid approach the ship, and a giant creature stands up, but morphs into Phil, which I think is such an amazing Canadian transformation. The special effects are by Ron Steffenwick, who's his brother, who did Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle, Max Payne, The Tuxedo, and The Love Guru.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
There you go. Cut back to the tavern where the band is arguing about that they should play more shows.
Don't start.
What?
Rob, we play every night.
No, not here. Montreal. New York, real shows.
We're a bar band.
And so far in Rob's career, both films have featured a band going nowhere until something fantastical happens, which I think is a very interesting through line. And I wonder if that relates to his life and music. It's interesting. The kid's dad goes to the tavern and asks to go upstairs. Meanwhile, the kids kidnapped the alien and taken him back to the cabin.
We're gonna sit here until my dad gets home. Then he's gonna kill you.
Above the tavern, Slim, and aka Buddy, chooses a woman of the night, in which we get the exchange, who doesn't love candy?
So, what's your name, sweetie?
I'm Candy.
Who doesn't love candy?
My parents.
She says, my parents.
My parents. Yes.
That was great too. I love it.
There's some really good lines in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, that was so smart, man. That whole rogues gallery of these sex workers where, one woman's crying and the other woman's like, I like to have fun. It just, I don't know. It was very funny.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it.
I'm glad you enjoyed it because I really, when I put this on, because I hadn't watched it prior to coming up with the idea. And then when I started it again, I was just like, oh my God, I love this so much. Like there's just so many. And then I thought, it's the budget is the thing that would probably hold people back from checking it out. But I think if you take that into account and just roll with it, it's pretty miraculous.
Yeah.
So what was that thing that blew up? Spaceship?
Yes,
Why are you here then?
just visiting.
You expect me to believe that?
I expect very little from you.
Why did you come to Earth?
My father brought me here.
Where's he at?
The kid interrogates Phil, and I love every part of this scene. He admits to shape-shifting, and the kid says, you can shape-shift and move things with your mind, and you don't think that's cool? And he goes, moving shit with your mind is the fucking coolest thing in the world.
Yeah. Oh. Just the monosyllabic answers, too. It's just yes.
Oh, yeah.
No, and very honest, yeah.
Yeah. And he's scared. You get the
Yeah.
fact that he's, like, scared in the situation. We get the first I wish I was alien moment where Phil slow motion flies a bottle of booze to the kid.
Yes. Yeah.
It's a reoccurring motif. And then the kid gets a donut flown to him. And then the alien gets stressed. And so the kid tells him to drink and tells him it's medicine.
Right.
Which is interesting because I feel like alcohol is viewed as medicine for many people. It's like if you're nervous about a flight, have some medicine, have a drink. If you're anxious about something, have a drink. Like it's something I hear or see people do all the time. They're like, "Oh, well, if I'm just going to have a drink first." It's like, "Well, but it's not medicine."
It's
in medicine.
It's in medicine.
Yes, yeah.
It is technically a solution, right? They use it for tinctures and stuff like that, but it does help activate things. It's able to carry things as a property of alcohol, but I feel like having a drink before a flight, or any of these things. I mean, for an alcoholic, for somebody who's addicted, it's just covering up the anxiety for a very brief period of time, right? So you're never really getting over the idea of flying. You're never getting over the fear of flying.
Mm-hmm.
You're just drinking as many tiny bottles of Jack Daniels as you can until the stewardess says, "I'm sorry, but I can't serve you anymore, sir."
Right.
And that's happened to me on the plane.
Oh,
has
no.
it?
Did you elbow the person next to you to be like, "Hey, you're gonna need to get a couple of these"?
I was by myself in the back, right? Because that's where I was most comfortable. And I think she gave me 2 the first time and 2 the second time. I don't know if I got a 5th one, but I just remember her saying, like, "I'm really sorry, sir. I can't serve you anymore."
Oh man!
So I got cut off on the plane on Southwest.
Flying to New York, right? Was this when you were flying to New York?
Maybe, yeah, that might have been.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, anxiety, sure, it can help you through a tough time. Have a drink, enjoy it, but I think
Which I think is a great time to ask the two of you, how have you stayed sober the last 4 years?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
That's a great question. Yeah.
Because, I mean, obviously, it's a stressful time. I went to the dentist recently, and I was like, I think I have a tooth problem, and they just laughed and said, no, everyone's grinding their teeth right now.
Jesus.
Everyone is just at this base level of anxiety and stress and the world's uncertainty. And how'd you do it?
I ran. I did. I ran. I worked out and I ran, but that wasn't I think it wasn't my only coping mechanism. I mean, I was, John and I are in a secret club, and that can be helpful. Those lessons I learned in those rooms, definitely those coping mechanisms. Listening to other recovering alcoholics and the way that they coped with things, and it kind of imitating what they did until it kind of clicked in for me, is a lot of what I did. Just this kind of self-soothing kind of coping thing that didn't involve, getting loaded. Plus, on top of it, I think, and John will probably agree too, we have this device, another tool, this device we use where we play the tape back, so you kind of have to stay recollected as to what you're capable of once you start drinking, because it's not about just drinking to accept anxiety or drinking to alleviate the anxiety. That may be the trigger, but once the trigger's pulled, then all the old behaviors start coming back and snowballing, and typically it's a pretty progressive kind of disease. So if I start drinking now, it's a very short period of time where I end up where I was when I quit. It's not this slow buildup like through my 20s all the way up to my late 30s. It's like, from what I've witnessed around me, a lot of alcoholics who go back out and drink again, they end up back exactly where they were within weeks or days sometimes, or within the day. I mean, it can go quick. Yeah.
I think in the last 4 years, if I'm picking up what you're asking, regardless of what I wake up and I'm going to hear that somebody said or somebody tweeted, or to have this general sense of anxiety in the world about some other awful thing that somebody with more power than me is going to do, that one, I know that those things are out of my control. So what's the point in worrying about those things that are out of my control? It sucks, and I should be concerned. And is there something I can do? If the answer is yes, then I shouldn't worry. And if the answer is no, then I shouldn't worry, right? Easier said than done. And then 2, there's a quote that I keep, and you can't see it behind me, but it's at the top of that whiteboard up there. And it says, there's no problem so bad that alcohol can't make worse. And that's something that I have. So how bad is it? It's awful. It's horrible. Whether it be the general anxiety of a tweet storm, or it could be something, as hard as a breakup or a diagnosis you weren't looking for, or a huge bill that you didn't want to have.
Oh yeah.
Alcohol is never going to make any of my problems better. I'm just going to be hungover and still have to deal with it. It's not going away. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, and again, if you're not an alcoholic and you want to have a drink and blow off some steam and forget about life for a while, I mean, that's fine. But for me, it was just like, okay, well, this is happening again, and this is awful, and this is horrid, and, whatever. But drinking is not going to make it any better.
Yeah.
Prayer, meditation, exercise. Don't eat like shit.
Right.
you know,
Dude,
get 8 hours of sleep.
While you were saying that, it occurred to me that you know what it reminds me of kind of what you're saying about it not changing or not stopping is it made me think of that Amy Mann song in Magnolia.
Mm.
That whole scene where they're just saying it's not going to change or it's not going to stop until you wise up, and that's kind of the position I feel like I'm in sometimes too. Like life, it doesn't stop. Like I can't make anything happen on my terms. So yeah, the past 4 years have been, socially and politically a total bummer. But like it's not gonna stop. You know what I mean? I can't make it stop by getting loaded, or I can't make it stop. Yeah, I can't even make it stop by running, but I can cope with it by just kind of soothing myself in those ways that I know are positive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I think a lot of times people think that the alcohol will help them turn their brain off, but what's even stronger is you just turn off the Twitter.
Yeah.
It's true, man.
That's it right there.
That was the thing. My shoulders were up to my ears. I turned it off and okay.
Yeah,
That's bizarre.
it's true. It's absolutely true. I mean, that is a tool that has become a tool of oppression.
Yeah.
In a way of just you don't even have to do anything. I can just tell you that something bad might happen, and then you can live with it if you're on Twitter. But if you're not, then you wouldn't know.
If I put it down, then I can look at my beautiful wife and my child and be like, oh, wow, I'm so thankful that they're alive and this is wonderful. Or I could go back to the hellscape. Let's go back to the hellscape.
Right.
No thanks.
Yeah.
Back in the film, poor Phil's dad has died in a crash. That's a significant loss, and he's being encouraged to dampen the feelings with alcohol, which I thought was kind of an interesting thing. It's interesting because this movie is so wild and so funny, but there is some very smart things happening underneath it, and it's alcohol related. So I'm glad that you both are here to share your experiences. Speaking of experiences, Slim tells the prostitute that he still respects her, and she says she still respects that he has to pay for sex, which is pretty lovely.
I love that line. I wrote it down in my notes. I still respect you even though you had to pay for sex. And I thought, what a way to turn that whole concept on its ear.
Yeah.
Like this whole misogynistic kind of sense that we're like, oh man, well, I still respect you even though, you're a sex worker, and she's like, you're the one paying for the sex. You know what I mean? Like this is a conditional relationship here,
And he even says, that's sweet. And then, then the timer goes off and she's like, that's time. And he's like, of course it is. And he just rolls out of the bed. Slim gets home and doesn't like that Phil's in the hunting cabin.
I suggest you move your ass out of this cabin, Phil.
But Dad.
How many times I tell you, don't let perverts into the cabin? How many times? Every night can't be New Year's Eve.
What the fuck happened on New Year's?
Yeah, right.
So funny. Oh, Phil runs into a beaver in the woods, voiced by Joe Flaherty, and the beaver says that he can stay with him.
You can stay at my place. Can you swim?
Did you guys ever encounter talking beavers in any kind of bender?
Not alcohol induced. I mean, there were some LSD and mushroom situations. But yeah.
I saw two raccoons having really loud raccoon sex on top of a mortuary one night.
Wow.
I thought they were fighting, and then they started having raccoon sex, and I was pretty drunk, and I cheered them on.
Nice.
I don't think sober I could tell the difference between two raccoons fighting or having sex.
Oh, you can tell.
Oh, okay.
You can tell, yeah. It got real sensual, and then I just smoking a cigarette being like, you get it. Both of you get it.
One lit a candle and started playing Enigma.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, I like to watch.
Yeah.
Suddenly we see a man in front of a fish tank with whales in it, and two henchmen approach, and we discover that they know about the alien landing and that these are agents that wear different colored jackets that go with their names. So it's like Reservoir Dogs, basically.
I didn't make that connection.
Yeah. Back in 2005 or 6, I was in a film class, and I reached out to two directors. One of them is the director of Phil the Alien, Rob Steffenwick, and the other one is Taika Waititi. And they both replied to me and were great, gave me great information. One thing Rob said was that in this scene, they shot it obviously at like an aquarium type place, and it's the same fish tank. They just moved the camera and moved the desk, and then would have the guys stand in front. So the two guys in the coats are standing in front of the same whale tank as the main bad guy.
Okay.
Which I was like, what a great cheat! Like, what a great way to come up with that. The guy says, "Can I pet the fish?" And the head guy screams, "They're mammals!"
The mammals.
That's also in my notes. And then he yells, "Leave!"
So I do want to bring up one thing briefly right before this scene where Phil is running around in the river and he knocks over the white dog. What is it? There's a white dog whiskey.
Oh, I've never
that's what the label said. It said white dog,
cool.
so I think that's a reference to moonshine. But he I've been in that river. Not that specific river, but I've been in a river, drunk out of my mind, like just dancing around. And it was very reminiscent for me. Agent Orange is the guy from The Daily Show.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
He's a newer guy, but he's I don't remember his name now. Jason Jones, is that right?
Jonesy?
Jones? Not Jonesy, Agent Orange.
Oh,
I think the actor's name is, I don't know.
Oh, so he's the guy that talks more, right? Of the two
Yes.
henchmen? Yeah. I don't know. I didn't write down his name. One of the reasons I just love to champion Rob's films is because he writes great jokes and he takes huge swings. Like, with the budget that he had, why would you have, like, aliens and effects and, like, levitation and, like, I mean, the hidden lab and a spaceship? It's like, that's insane. You'd cut it all down to be like, it takes place in a room with one guy. You know, it's just like, but he doesn't do that. And I really admire that. Phil wakes up hungover in a beaver dam. How much do you two miss hangovers? Just wasting a whole day, just feeling sick. Like,
not at all.
Just a day. Wow. No, I would have like 2 or 3 day hangovers. That
So
would turn back into binges again. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, it's just it. The older I got and the more that I drank, the longer the hangover.
Is there a difference between a binge and a bender? Because some of the terminology you used on the podcast,
About
I was
the
like,
same thing.
Are they okay?
For me, at least, it's all just being really drunk for a long period of time with short periods of hungover sobriety in between. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't for me. The bender wasn't like 4 days drunk every waking moment. It would be like really drunk, go pass out, wake up hungover, and then just get really drunk again, then pass out, wake up hungover. You know?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think binge drinking for normal folks implies that you drank a whole bunch in one evening.
Yeah.
But for us, it was always a whole bunch. So
all the time.
Do you know what I mean? Like you would go out, and I remember trying to think about controlling it, and like, okay, well maybe I'll just have a few drinks, and then I can go home and I can go to sleep and I can wake up, and that never ever happened. So the bender, I think, just implies the 7-day bender or the 8-day bender, or finding a way to drink every single day and every single night. You know?
Right. And by figuring it out is, I think on one of the episodes, you had called Jerry and been like, I figured it out. It's a 6-pack of beer and 2 bottles of white wine. Was that what it was?
That's what I had thought. It was in his first year of sobriety.
Yeah.
And so we'd still talk on the phone and whatever once in a while. And I had reached this point where I was like, oh, as long as I just drink this, everything's going to be okay. I think I figured it out, man. Like I thought that I had figured it out.
Yeah.
And the only thing I'd figured out was for that night that in that moment that I felt good. I still had a hangover, and then I had to drink more later on, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
So, but yes.
And I wasn't judging John in any way. I was actually, I think I even told him, well, if you figured it out, let me know. Because if you figured it out, then I'm getting back on there with you.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
oh, no.
If you figured out the magical solution to doing this without fucking our lives up, like, please hit me up if you're doing field research. Because,
oh my God.
You know, I had been sober like maybe a year or something. I don't even know if I had been a year. I probably had like 8 months, 6 months under my belt. So I was like, man, this sobriety thing sucks. I mean, there was no immediate, for me in the beginning, there was no immediate like benefit. You know, that pink cloud was kind of far away, but.
It's like, do you guys remember when Richard Simmons would wear that like muscles like outfit and he would talk about like health and stuff? Like they should, like John would have that, but it's like for an alcoholic body, and it's just like every day he's like, I think it's 2 bottles of Carlo Rossi.
I think too. Like I was trying to be as genuine as I could to answer his question. Was like, I think I figured it out, man. Like, but the thing is, I had those thoughts years prior. Like, okay, I'm just gonna drink Pinot Grigio, and everything will be fine. But that obviously is not how it works.
Yeah. Then you're just an asshole.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Just one more bottle of Pinot Grigio,
please.
At least you said please. I mean, Phil emerges wearily from a brook, still clinging to the empty bottle, wanders through the woods. I think he eats magic mushrooms in this scene. And then we see the Winnebago, and the alcoholic from the bar is Agent Jones. Agent Blue and Red show up to tell him he's reactivated.
No, that's where you're wrong. I'm retired. You don't retire from the company.
Hey, he knows that. He just wants you to keep hitting him.
What?
Yeah, I read about this in Hustler. He's one of them masochists.
You sick bastard.
And we get the sense that he's using the alcohol to kind of mute his existence, to suppress memories, which I think is a way people use alcohol for sure. They tell him to stay out of the bars because nobody finds an alien at the bottom of a bottle of whiskey, which is a great line, I think. Ironically, that's where Phil hangs out for the rest of the film. So,
Right.
Yeah.
I noticed that.
Interesting twist. Phil discovers the tavern, approaches the bartender, and he says, "I'm sick." He sets the empty bottle down and he says, "Medicine," which is something my friend Aaron and I would say to each other every time we'd go get a 40.
I'm sick.
Listen, friend, I don't mean to sound rude, but you're not from around here, are you?
Medicine.
Yeah.
We go, "Medicine."
Hair of the dog, huh?
No, thank you. Medicine.
It's a great little example of the beginning, but the snake eating its own tail of kind of alcoholism, like you were talking about, Jerry, where it's like a brief period of sober hungoverness and then right back on the train.
Yeah. Yeah.
Always, you have to. There's no.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the solution, the cause and the solution to the problem.
Like The Simpsons, right? Right, like Homer, here's alcohol, the cause and solution to all of our problems. Yeah.
Life's problems.
Cause
Like, how accurate, man. Yeah.
The father and son are fishing, and the dad's going to take his son to the women of the night. And then back in the tavern, we get the lick a shot and suck a lemon song, which has always struck me as like the weirdest song.
Lick a salted, drink a shot, suck a lemon. Lick a salted, drink a shot, suck a lemon. Lick a salted, drink a shot, suck a lemon.
What shot do you suck lemons for?
That's a Canadian one, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
'Cause-
you suck a lime for tequila.
yeah, that's what I was thinking.
There is a chocolate cake shot, which is it's a sugared rim with citron vodka and frangelico, which I believe is a hazelnut liqueur. And so the idea is, I think you're supposed to lick, suck, shoot, and suck. So like you lick the sugar, you do the shot, and then you bite the lemon, and it tastes like chocolate cake for some reason.
It seems like something Schwabi would have bought me in a pool hall.
Yes, probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's exactly
He was always
right.
like Irish car bombs was like his thing. A man chats up Phil, and Phil is hilariously drunk in this scene, and he proclaims, "I'm a funny guy."
Funny!
Phil floats a bowl of nuts, and the dude, we get to hear, "I wish I was alien again" for the second time. And then Phil says, "I'm a magician."
Yes.
That's another line we used to say all the time.
I'm a magician.
Anytime we did something, we'd say, "I'm a magician." Classic. And then my favorite line of all time is in this film, and it's when he says, he's super drunk, and he says,
I'm staying with a beaver down by the brook.
and the guy goes, sounds nice, and he goes, "It's pretty good."
It's pretty good, yeah. It's pretty good. I have to wonder if the writer of this and the
Rob.
director,
Yep.
if Rob
And Star.
is in the program or recovering in any
Right.
way, because especially Jones was, if we go back to the Jones moment in the RV,
yeah.
one, his name is Jones. I don't know if that has something to do with jonesing for a drink.
Right.
That's what I wrote. But he says the Serenity Prayer, and then he
Yeah.
does this thing where he's trying to pep himself up, and it sounds exactly like every single bullshit negative self-talk that I've ever given myself. Like, all right, you piece of shit. You think you can't you just not drink for a week and get this job done?
Yeah.
Come on, you stupid fuck, you pathetic,
Yeah.
you know, like, and all that stuff. And so I was like, yeah, I've said those things in a hungover state. Like, just
Yeah.
get it together, you piece of shit.
Yeah,
So I
it's-
wonder what Rob's stance is on alcohol, or at least
Right.
was at that point. I don't know, but
Well, he listens, so
Well,
So Rob, let me know.
Now, the bass player in the band, is he related to the director, to the main character?
Oh,
or
gosh.
the main actor?
I don't.
Are they? They look so similar that I
Yeah.
thought it was the same act. It was Rob who, of course. Yeah,
Are you
the
talking
main
about
character.
Canadian Paul Rudd?
No, not Canadian Paul Rudd. It was maybe it wasn't the bass player. It wasn't the cool guy with sunglasses, and it wasn't the
gotcha.
drummer. So it was
Curly
the
hair.
other guy.
Curly hair, yeah.
curly hair,
Yeah.
kind of
Not
auburn
Dave.
hair. I thought they were. They just looked so similar in their faces. And I
I
was
don't
like, are
think
they-
so.
Yeah.
But that's interesting.
Those Canadians all look alike. You know?
Let's just put that out there. Oh man,
I
Jones-
smiled when I said that. By the way.
yeah,
To the
yeah.
listener who can't see this.
That is a joke.
Kill these puppies, Jones! Sir? These puppies are a direct threat to the national security of these United States!
Jones has a flashback where you had to kill puppies with a cheese grater.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
This is where you, like you said, John. He recites. He says, "Give me the serenity for things you cannot change." That's the serenity prayer, yeah.
Yes.
Part of it.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
except the things I cannot change. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And then he says, 1 week of keeping yourself out of the bars. Did you try ultimatums, either of you, when going into recovery, or did you just
Yeah.
go straight to cold turkey quitting?
No, I definitely tried ultimatums a bunch of times before recovery. And it's even a big part of my story. I always, whenever I tell this story about my whole recovery, it's always like, well, I tried once. I literally tried once before for 3 days. I got sober for 3 days and then rewarded myself for being sober by getting drunk. But I mean, there were tons of ultimatums. Absolutely, I tell my wife, myself. And John, it really, when John was talking about that pep talk you give yourself, and that, I'm going to try not to reference other movies too much, but it does really remind me of that Tarantino film with DiCaprio and Brad Pitt. What's the name of that Hollywood one?
Once Upon a Time.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where DiCaprio's telling himself in the mirror, "You fucking piece of shit! If you drink again, I'll kill you." And that. I know this isn't the same movie, but that scene really was very resonant with me. It really struck a chord because I have, in my dark times, had that conversation with myself in a mirror. Like, I will literally kill you if you drink again. And then, I mean, I'm sitting here doing a podcast, so, I never really followed through. But, like, I've been there. Absolutely been there.
Yeah.
And it's what? So wait, what was the question? Oh, how many times did I try? Yeah, there was plenty. There'd be a week here. I think at one point, my boss, who was my friend, after I made a fool of myself at work after drinking all night and like coming into the bar where I worked at, and then the next morning I had to work, and he pulled me aside, and he should have fired me if I wouldn't have been his friend. He would have fired me, but he sat me down and we talked to me for like 30-40 minutes, and basically it was like, I can't tell you how to run your life, and I'm not trying to tell you to quit drinking or any of this stuff, but you can't behave like this. And I think I quit for a month, and I was really proud of myself. I was like, all right, I got this thing licked. Fuck it. Okay.
Figured it out.
Figured it out. I can quit if I want to.
Dude, you were figuring it out left and right, man. I should have just never moved to Oregon. I should have just moved in with you, man.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there was all this stuff where there was many times, a week here, a week there, but nothing was ever learned. It was just, I'll white knuckle it. Look, I proved it to you, whoever you was at the time, that I don't have to drink,
You mean like from outer space?
That's right.
Do you have gills or anything like that?
No,
Can you read my mind?
no.
Well, back in the Canadian tavern, Phil is sitting with everyone, confessing he's an alien, and he says, "I like whiskey," which is great.
Yes.
On my world, there's no violence.
That's beautiful.
Except for twice a year when the weather changes. And there's a brief period of ultra-violence.
I love that. This foreshadowing, I was like,
Yes.
I wonder when that ultraviolence is going to... It's got to come up now. It's got to happen, right?
It's so funny. Jones examines the ship, encounters Joey, and Joey gives him a ton of misinformation about Phil.
He said his name was Agnes, but he was wearing big, thick clothes. He looked big, but that was his clothes and a big jacket and a hat. He's big and scary.
And then we're right back in the tavern where Phil urinates on a man and gets punched in the face.
Yes.
And then Phil takes the mic and starts howling on stage, and we're starting to get that Phil maybe shouldn't be drinking.
Right. Yeah. Also, Jonesy's gun is a Nintendo Zapper.
Yes. Yeah, I love that.
Spray painted silver.
Yeah.
Yes,
Which I
it
was
is.
like, man, that's a budget right there. They're like, shit, we use a lot of the budget on the puppet We got just here's the zapper. Let's spray paint it silver. I admired it. I was like, this is very indie. Like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
This is zapper. Yeah.
Later, the band are chilling with Phil, and he moves a beer with his mind and says,
Moving stuff with your mind is the coolest fucking thing in the world.
Right.
and I love that he just brought it back, even though he's all wasted. Slim takes Joey to the brothel, and Ginger and Joey get a room. Phil in the beaver dam is drunk, and he argues, I'm a magician, and the beaver says,
I'm a magician, Beaver.
Phil, will you stop? If you wake up the kids, you're out of here. Do you understand me?
I'm sorry.
Listen, Phil, you can't keep drinking like this. I've been around humans a lot. Trust me, alcohol's not your friend.
I know. It's medicine.
No, it's not. It impairs your judgment. And turns you into an asshole.
Yeah.
which I think is true.
Yes, it is.
That's very true.
Absolutely. The beaver is at this point in the movie, he's very much a voice of reason for he's Phil's friend, right?
Yeah, and I feel like he almost could become like a sponsor for him.
Sure.
In a way, you know.
In a way, yeah.
You know, and speaking of sponsors, we're going to take a brief moment to hear from our sponsor. Are you tired of boring food and condiments made of processed ingredients? Then you need Marshall's Hot Sauce. Each small batch is made by Sarah Marshall, who sources from local farmers. Her dedication to knowing the sources carries on through right down to knowing the single origin beekeeper and even the harvester of the sea salt. Each sauce is plant-based, gluten-free, and packed with deliciousness. Annual offerings from mild to spicy being smoked habanero barbecue, red chili lime, serrano ginger lemongrass, and habanero carrot curry. Not to mention a rotating offering of limited edition sauces like Whiskey Smoked Ghost, Caramelized Scorpion Ghost, Volcano Sparkle, and even a collaboration with the Heatonist Bird's Eye Charred Chive Dulce. There's always something new and delicious. Just head on over to marshallshotsauce.com. That's Marshall's HAUTESAUCE.com. When checking out, enter VHUS in promo code for 20% off. That's VHUS at checkout for 20% off. And now, back to the show. We're back. The beaver has very reliable information from a small bird that there's a secret station underneath the falls.
No. I am sick of excuses.
Under the falls, we learn that Jones relied on bad information from Joey, and they're reactivating Madame, which is our next assassin.
That's a great name, by the way.
Oh, yeah, Madame.
Madame.
In a bar, we see comedian Sean Cullen, also one of my favorite performances in a film, sitting with a blue-haired lady, and Sean is hilarious.
I've got to tell you something. Just thinking about it, it's got my stomach's tied up in knots.
Perhaps you've had too much champagne.
If only that were the case.
And this scene feels largely improvised, I think. He's a great alien. His order is incredible. My favorite being a belt in the shape of a snake constantly spitting poison. and then he says, and just put jelly on your fist and punch me in the throat.
That was my line. That was my favorite. One of my favorite ones is cover your fist in jelly and just punch me in the throat.
Did you guys see the outtakes?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Because when he's still continuing ordering during the credits.
I can't remember the specific things, but I was like, he really did have just a run of stuff.
Yeah, it's wild. Nicole liquefies him. Phil goes right back to the tavern, and the beaver hits the door. And Phil says he's very disappointed in me. I just need one more drink.
Yeah.
He says, can I just have one drink? And then we see Joey tell his dad that he can't eat breakfast with him because he's going to go meet Ginger. And he gives him the sometimes a man needs to be alone line.
Yeah.
Dad, sometimes a man just needs to be alone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes
He's
you
like,
do.
know what I mean? And the dad's like, yeah, I do know what you mean. The band says they'll take Phil to the base, and Phil says maybe tomorrow, and he keeps drinking because he's scared. And I think this is another great example of like someone that's like, okay, I know I need to get sober. I need to stop drinking tomorrow. And then tomorrow comes and they're like, you know what day is better? Thursdays. Thursdays are a sober day. I'll get sober on. And then that comes and they're like, well, it's the weekend.
Just kick the can down the road. I have a great example of that, actually.
Okay.
So I used to smoke, right? I used to smoke cigarettes, and I'm still addicted to nicotine, so I vape. And I have my device that I normally use broke last night, stopped working.
Oh, no.
And so I had this like nicotine panic where I looked at my wife and I'm like, I'm either going to have to quit nicotine or I'm going to have to go buy another device, by either tonight or tomorrow. And we both got like paused, and then I said, but I'm not quitting nicotine. We're moving. Right now would be the worst time to quit nicotine because we're moving. And she just fucking laughed. She just laughed at me and said, okay, whatever you got to do, man.
Yeah.
But I was like, and then the minute it came out of my lips, I was like, there's that addict, like absolutely. There's not only the physical aspect of it, but the psychological of kicking the can down the road. I'm like, listen, once we get all settled and get our shit together, then I'll really consider quitting nicotine at that point. But right now, it's just it's not good. It's not a good time. I gotta move and be stressed out.
So, two things. I think that is accurate, and I would say that's accurate if you did not already have a foundation for recovery in general, Jerry. So my second point is, that's bullshit, and you're just kicking the can down the road.
I absolutely am. Yeah. No, I know. I even bought a brand new device.
Because if you could quit nicotine during a move in the middle of a pandemic, then you could do anything. But you don't need to.
No, that nicotine voice in the back of the bus is like, "You'll be all right, buddy. Just ride it out, ride it out." And I'm like, "You're right. You're right."
Yeah, I knew a guy once that quit smoking and took up karate at the same time, and that was not a good thing to do. He was so violent.
Yeah. And it's funny because when we had Coda on and he was talking about quitting smoking, he said that was like the worst withdrawal he had ever had, was quitting nicotine out of everything he's done. And he's, had multiple issues in his life. And he was like, that nicotine was the worst withdrawal I'd ever had. And so that even rings in my ear as this cautionary tale, which ties in with the alcohol. I remember a lot of a part of me kicking the can down the road was that I was really afraid I'd get sick. And I would go through physical withdrawal and I'd have to go to the hospital because I was drinking almost a fifth. If we're rounding up, I was drinking pretty much a fifth a day, of Jim Beam or Evan Williams at that point because it wasn't that rich. But so I was like, I'm going to get really sick. I'm going to see spiders and shit. And I don't want to do that. And so I would just put it off, try to taper down. But then you don't taper down when you're compulsive about it,
No.
Yeah. So I'll be back on this podcast next time with a way bigger vape.
Way bigger. Just one
way
of those,
bigger vape.
Like one of those helmets that just, like the beer can one.
With two vapes, with the beer can. And then just a giant, 4-liter of Coke Zero. Just drinking the Coke Zero and then just vape. Yeah, we'll just blow on clouds.
Call you Darth Vapor.
You'll quit when you're ready. You'll quit when you're ready, man.
I'll quit when I'm ready. Or I may never be ready. Who knows? You see that? I'm kicking the can.
There it is. Down the road.
Doing it on a movie podcast.
What the hell?
Where's the kid?
He's out with a whore.
What?
He's in love. He could be anywhere.
You want to die, mister?
Yeah.
Jones bursts into the cabin and threatens to kill Slim, which he openly accepts, which is, he delivers a heartfelt speech, which is sad and funny at the same time.
Are you crazy? I'm gonna fucking kill you.
In a lot of pain. My wife left me for a travel agent. The kid's out with a whore. I haven't had a steady job in 17 years. In the head, please.
This is what make it. Just shoot me in the head.
Right at the head.
Wait, did we pass the part with the trapper already?
No, that's right here. Phil encounters a trapper is the next scene.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have anything you wanted to say about the trapper?
Yes, the trapper is wearing the same outfit as the trappers in Cannibal the Musical.
Yes!
It's the same exact outfit.
Yeah.
It's like the same, one of the same trap. I swear to God,
it looks
it's
like the same dude.
Trapper. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yo, that's the dude from the Alfred Packers musical, which I love. It's one of my favorite movies.
So good.
Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, that's
what is it? The line, the sky's as bright as a baked potato or something like that.
Yeah, the sky's as blue as a baked potato or whatever.
I think you know exactly what it means. It's going to be a spadoinkle day.
It's going to be a spadoinkle day. Yeah.
I watched it a few times.
Yeah, same here.
Do you want some fudge, Packer?
Yeah.
Fudge Packer?
Classic.
We'll take the yacht.
Yes, of course. However, the restaurant's only 1 kilometer away. Perhaps the yacht would be overkill.
Madame kills a yachting alien, and then Jones and Slim are hanging out and drinking beer. They bond, and the dad feels like he wasn't there, and Jones says,
What are you talking about? You're a great father. My dad never bought me no whores.
Which is a nice thing to say, Slim says. Joey and Ginger are allowed in the bar. Clearly Joey is like 12 or something. I don't even know. It's crazy. Phil loses his shit on a cigarette machine and the cops get called, which is Phil's rock bottom, right? That's what we're seeing here in the film. And this is something that I thought was so interesting, and we touched on it in the first episode we did together, but that is that somebody's rock bottom can look like anything. It doesn't have to be going ape shit on a cigarette machine or, like, you know, getting fired from your job. Sometimes it could be just, I'm having too much to drink.
Yeah,
That's
it
just
could be.
too much, yeah.
I mean, it can be anything. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be the look in your child's eyes when you come home after. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a fucking, you know, court case. It doesn't have to be a DUI. It can be like, oh my god, I think that was too much last night, or I spent too much money, or I had too much to drink. And you know, once you find that thing. Okay, I mean the whole idea of when the rock bottom comes, because, and I think Jerry said this. He's had tons of bottoms, right? You just keep bottoming out over and over and over and over until that one where you're like, oh, this is gonna hurt if I keep doing this. It's not until you learn that lesson that we call it that rock bottom. That is our rock bottom of, I don't know, epiphany or.
Sometimes I think we should replace that in our lexicon. I probably won't, but the rock bottom term with like the moment of clarity in you know what I mean? Replace it with that instead, because like John says, I think we both experience having tons of different emotional bottoms, physical bottoms, relationship bottoms, all due to our drinking. And I think it's more like, it's not the bottom that's important. It's that moment you have where you're like, this is unmanageable. I can't live my life doing this way anymore. This is not working. This is not functional in any way whatsoever. So I need to change it in earnest. You know, it's that moment, the haze clearing. And you're like, wow, dude, this is all fucked up. Yeah.
Were you ever angry at it? Like when you, had the moment of clarity. I forget which of you had a beer the day after the heavy drinking and then we're sober after that.
Both of us did.
Okay, so in that moment of clarity, the final one, was there any kind of anger in it, or just like, were you optimistic in moving forward or tired?
I was not angry necessarily. I think all the anger had been directed toward me by other people in my life. They were upset with me. There was absolutely no optimism. It was simply, it was exhaustion. It was the fact that, and I think for me, it wasn't just mentally and emotionally that I felt broken. I felt really like, I mean, people say shattered, like my life was shattered.
Right.
And
that's
that
what
may
you see
seem
in
extreme,
movies
but that's really what it felt like. Right. And so, but at that point I was just fucking tired physically. I couldn't do this again. I don't think I could have handled another hangover. You know, I'm not saying I would have died from it, but it was like, it was getting to the point where it was taking every single ounce of energy for me to get up, drink, go to work, just so I could drink again, you know? So I think that for me, it was that there was no optimism. Jerry, did you feel any optimism?
No, I was scared, man. I was really scared. I was freaking out. And that moment of clarity I still had, like, it wasn't like a bulb went off and I was like, I'm done. I'm not drinking anymore. Like, I had to nurse myself through all the damage I had done at that point. So, like, when you asked about having that last beer, I remember sitting out. I had this horrible bender, and then that's when I woke up that next day, and I was like, I'm just done. I can't do this anymore. But I'm shaking, like I'm having the DTs. Like, I was shivering. I'd wake up shivering and sweating, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And so I had to have that last, my body was like, you need this last drink, you know? And so, yeah, I had that warm white wine in a plastic tumbler, because that was all that was left. And I was sitting there with my brother-in-law on a porch swing, and I said, I think I'm going to quit drinking. And he was like, you fucking should. Like, everybody was done with my shit. Everybody was done. He's like, you fucking should, because you're getting annoying. Like, you're no fun anymore. And I was like, yeah, I'm done. And then, I drank that, and then it was like 2 PM. I went back to bed and slept all day till the next day. And then the next day I woke up and was like, still hungover, but was like, okay, I'm not drinking anymore. And I was scared. I was like freaking out. I was scared. The optimism, even 6 months, 8 months into it, the optimism wasn't really there. It was like, I need to be diligent now. I feel physically better. I'm no longer gray. my skin is pink now. Do you know what I mean? I no longer have jaundice. The physical aspects are gone, but the emotional, all the emotional, psychological toll was still there. And I knew I had a lot of shit I had to do. So I was scared, panicking. I did feel optimistic at one point though. I mean, it did clear up. I did what we call in our lexicon, we call the pink cloud, where you have this euphoria where everything's great. I don't feel like shit every single day anymore, and everything's great, and things are clicking together, and I have a little extra money, and my relationships are repairing, and I would tell everybody I knew that I was in recovery. I would tattoo people and just wedge it in there because I was so excited that I wasn't doing this thing anymore that I'd be yeah, I've been recovering from alcohol. I've been sober for 18 months. And they're and 19-year-old college girls I don't care, dude. You're my weird uncle.
Yeah.
They're can you just give me the Henry Rollins logo on my back and stop?
It wasn't even Henry Rollins at that point. It was the bird silhouettes, or infinity symbol.
Got it.
Yeah.
I think
that's never ending.
It's there was a moment in early sobriety where I started to feel good, and it struck me that I would wake up, and I remember telling Jerry, I would wake up without a hangover. I'd been drinking for so long and so heavily that I'd been having we used to joke yeah, man, I've been, you've had hangovers for the last 15 years. And it was true. So I'd wake up without a hangover and I felt like I had a fucking superpower.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, there's energy. There's almost purpose. It feels, I don't feel achy and sick and nauseous and and so, yeah. I think everybody's rock bottom is different.
Yeah.
In the scene in the movie with the cigarette machine, I wrote bars are weird places. And what occurred to me was in this bar, which still I don't know if it was a set or not, but it looked kind of like a real place. I don't know, but it's this weird room where you can go and get drunk and you can misbehave for the most part. In this particular instance, he gets carted off.
Oh yeah.
But I've done so much. I've behaved so poorly in these public places that this kind of behavior would never be allowed anywhere else. And it's
we used to play danger darts where someone would sit under the dartboard and the other person would close their eyes and throw darts at the dartboard, and this was allowed in the bar.
Yeah.
I sprayed vodka from the vodka gun into a postman's mouth who laid on the bar. I was allowed to do that by the bartender.
Yeah. Classy place,
it's
vodka
crazy.
gun.
Where is this in Portland? Why did we go there, John?
It's not here anymore, but my favorite thing was I was listening to Quentin Tarantino on a podcast, and he had a premiere at the Hollywood Theater, and then was like, what's the name of that bar we went to? I love that bar. And that was my bar. I was like, oh my God, I love that place.
Sandy Hut. I've been drinking Sandy Hut. And Club 21, too.
Yeah. This was called Blackwell's.
Oh, not familiar. No. I was hoping, I threw the names out fishing I wonder.
Right. Is it this one? Yeah.
Drinking, was it the Standard? No, everybody was mean at the Standard. They were mean. The bartenders.
Was there some place called the Black Tiger or something in Portland?
Oh, Hungry Tiger.
I think Marla took me there for Jaeger shots.
Oh, for sure.
Of course she did. And that was John. Sure. I just want to say this on this podcast. That was John's that was when the switch would get really flipped hard with John, when he'd be he'd glass over and be like, we're getting Jaeger shots.
Oh, yeah.
Come on, everybody, Jaeger shots. Because it was this ironic college girl thing that he would do. But
I would think it was funny or clever.
Let's do some free liquor. Yeah, I'll drink Jaeger shots.
You're buying, who cares?
Yeah, I'll drink Four Loko out of a boot. If that's funny, let's do it.
Right. Well, luckily, it didn't send you to jail. Poor Phil goes to jail.
Yeah, poor Phil.
And a man approaches him and introduces him to Jesus, which is another thing that happens, I think, at this point in some people's stories with alcohol, is that there's a religious aspect that enters. Right. Mm-hmm. So even though this silly movie about aliens is happening, it's also a movie that I think is really about alcoholism. And I didn't put it together because I just enjoyed drinking watching it so much.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So back at the tavern, everyone's sitting around, and Joey says that jail has changed him. And they go, it's only been 3 days. And then in walks Phil. He starts prophesizing and then starts levitating.
Behold, the kingdom of heaven is at hand.
Hey, you're Bard.
Behold!
Holy Jesus, snapping arseholes.
Come ye, blessed of my Father. Inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world.
Phil, what you doing?
So yeah, I just wrote that it's not uncommon for people to find religion and get sober. You both are part of the big book situation, yes? Like you
Yeah.
both say the big book.
Yes, the big book.
And that
So,
book is...
Yeah.
It's not the Bible.
It's called the Big Book. Yeah.
It's called the
It's
Big
just
Book.
called
the Big Bible.
Alcoholics
Yeah.
Anonymous.
Okay,
Yeah, we're an
Alcoholics
Alcoholics
We're AA
Anonymous.
people.
Right.
AA.
And in those, like, when was the first time you went to a meeting, and what got you through the door?
Well, I was laughing at John because it was a cab that got
Yeah,
John.
so mine was a cab because I was drunk. So this one didn't stick, but
Yeah.
I used to have this thing where on the weekends, my weekend, whatever that was, I would get home from work at like 11 or 12, and I would drink until like 8 in the morning. And I would just by myself, smoking cigarettes, listening to music, watching computer, whatever. Yeah.
I met that guy back in the Eugene days. You're still doing it?
Yes, you did. I was still doing it in 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14. And I remember finally calling the AA hotline, and then the guy on the other end convinced me to go to a meeting, so I called a cab, and I paid a cab.
Don't drive.
Because I don't drive. So I was like, take me to this building. Here's $50. I just want you to wait here because I don't know when I'm coming out. And I sat in this meeting, and I hated it because I was drunk, and I was just angry. I was like, I don't belong here. Who the fuck are these people? I didn't get anything from it. But obviously I wasn't ready.
In meetings that you've been to, obviously it's anonymous, but I'm just curious at this point in your story, John, is it common that you would see that person enter the meeting, like where you just like spot the person and be like, I don't think he's ready, but I hope he can do it. Like,
Yeah,
you know, just reeking of booze and stuff.
Sometimes, not all the time, but yeah, you see people who are kind of like look a little stressed, look a little freaked out, look a little sad, look a little pale, look a little tired.
I can spot the drunk.
Yeah.
I don't judge him for it though. I don't say, oh, I don't think he's gonna make it or he's not ready yet. But I can tell who's drunk. I can tell who's hungover. I can smell them. I can smell people from across the room now. Yeah, and I'm always like, man, I hope it sticks.
Yeah.
You know, it really does. It's a genuine. I think John can totally agree. It's this genuine empathy where I'm like, man, I hope it sticks for that person. You know, I mean, I sat next to a person who put on dark sunglasses and they were like red and swollen from drink. You could just see it, and they just cried through the sunglasses the entire meeting. And I was like right next to the person, and at one point I just kind of like just touched their arm, you know, and they looked at me, and I'm like, "You're gonna be all right." And then they, you know, we got through the rest of the thing or whatever. But it was just like it's heavy shit because I'm like, that's that whole right.
Yeah.
But sorry, John, I didn't mean to interrupt your story.
No. That's my whole story.
You're like, here's $50. Wait, if I come out covered in blood,
You're right.
we gotta get the fuck out of here.
I don't remember how long I stayed. I was so drunk. Like it was 8:00 in the morning. It was hot, California sun. I just felt awful, and I probably eventually went home and drank another beer and passed out. But one thing I want to say is that I think it's a tool, it's a device in the movie. So he finds Jesus in this movie. Jesus is not required. If I can say anything to anybody about whatever program of recovery they use, and Jesus was not required for me, nor did I find Jesus, nor have I found Jesus, nor am I looking to find Jesus.
Amen.
I think, I think we all find our own brand of spirituality, because for me, that's what was lacking, and that's what I've come to realize with the other people around me, is that there's some level of spiritual connection to something, anything, whatever you need, man, however you find it. God is a metaphor. What's it a metaphor for? Well, we don't know, man. That's why it's a metaphor. So so that we just use this word God because we need to talk about it, because we're just humans with language.
Yeah.
So, I even get weird using that word. Like I have issues
people
using
don't like
that
it.
word. Yeah.
So that's how I got over it.
And the thing about the Big Book is, and I think it's a common misconception that it is the Bible. It is because it was written so long ago. God, I feel like I'm fucking talking about Scientology now. But like, the Big Book is basically a self-help manual written by a recovering alcoholic and a surgeon who is also a recovering alcoholic who started recovery in the 30s. So this was before there were any programs or anything. So they're like, well, what if we kind of crib and steal some aspects of this religious program, this Christian program that was kind of helping people dry out from alcoholism, put it in this book, add a little bit of Buddhism and a little bit of like Carl Jung and some other stuff, and mash it all together in this philosophy here. And then we pad the rest of the book with stories of other people who have used these steps to help them get sober. So the beginning's kind of like they're the steps. They kind of explain them. Then they kind of it's a really old book, so they go to the wives and they're like, it's kind of misogynist because it kind of appeals to the what you can't be an alcoholic. You're a wife. You know what I mean? Like it's a really weird book. So as I think John and I and a lot of people approach the same way, where they just pick little parts out that work for them, and you just kind of push off the other stuff, and hopefully maybe the stuff you pushed off, you can find a little gem out of there later that'll help you kind of philosophize what's going on to you and stuff, or with you. But like even with me in AA, like my parents are both in recovery. So my dad's been sober since 1989, and my mom got sober in 1997. So my mom was still drinking like an alcoholic and married to my dad, who was going through the program. And my dad got sober in the 80s, and this is old school AA. I mean, this was cleaning out ashtrays. This is like what you see in the movies, bunch of men with their sleeves rolled up, smoking cigarettes, being intense. So I knew the program was there. I went to Al-Anon meetings when I was a teenager, but I didn't give a shit. I was a teenager, And so I knew that was my option. That was always I think John and Coda and I talked about it once, and Coda was like, what was that for you? And I was like, that was my escape hatch. It really was. As selfish as it sounds, that was my lifeboat. I'm like, if it gets bad, I can hop in this lifeboat, you know? And that's basically how I found it. I started going to NA meetings because I didn't know where any of the AA meetings were in Eugene. And I had a friend who was a cab driver who was doing NA. So I went to those and I was like, oh, I don't fit in here. Like, this is not my kind of addict. And so eventually, through common friends, I found another friend who was doing AA meetings and invited me with him. And it just kind of stuck. I just heard my own story. Like, I heard people talking about my compulsion using the same kind of terminology and thought process that I was experiencing. I was like, that's so crazy that you think of it the way I think of it. And so I just kept hanging around. Yeah. And then eventually I was making coffee and drawing logos for them and stuff. So.
When you hear people vocalize your thoughts, other people when you hear strangers vocalize your thoughts, I think that's the connection that really helps.
Right. So I don't want to speak for John again, but for me, it wasn't the God, Jesus aspect, the religious aspect. It was hearing another person say, I know what that feels like. Like another person say, I've felt this, this, and this. And me going, damn, it's like you're just writing a list of what's going on in me right now. Yeah.
Well, it's like when someone puts that in words, because I think something that would set most people off outside of this situation is anyone saying, I know what that feels like. Because you're just like, no, you fucking don't. But if they can express it in words where you're like, oh, you do know what this feels like. Like, that's a trip. Like, because we live these like singular feeling existences that,
Back at the Canadian tavern.
In the tavern, Phil proclaims that they're going to the falls and to get their shit.
We're going to Niagara Falls. Get your shit.
Road trip?
Road trip.
And then back in the Beaver Dam, every time he speaks, there's like organ music that plays. Like he's always hypnotizing.
And he's lit up behind his head too, like a little halo of light behind him. Yeah. And he's wearing that drug rug. I don't know what you call that type of poncho he has.
Oh,
on.
yeah.
We live in dangerous times, Beaver. Blessed are the peacemakers.
Phil, would you stop quoting the Gospels and just listen to me a second?
Beaver suggests that it's wrong to use his alien powers to convert people to Christianity, which is, I mean, this Beaver's he's on it, you know? And then Jones and Madame see a marquee that says Phil the Alien and his band play the gospel, and they go in and there's a full-on, like, revival happening in this, in the bar. Deep under the falls, Blue and Red go to talk to the big guy again, and they're told that they have to go kill Phil.
The aliens gathered a small but exceptionally loyal following.
He's got a following?
It seems the alien's become quite taken with Christianity. He's preaching the gospel with his band, a boy and a prostitute, and performing miracles on a touring pilgrimage to our secret base beneath the Niagara Falls.
He's got a band?
Things really pick up at this part of the movie. There's only like 15 minutes, I think, or something, as things like, it just races to an end. We see them recreate the Last Supper scene with everyone in the bar.
That was great. That was really well done.
Yeah, I love that. Then Madame takes Phil to a hotel room. Phil can't sleep with her, so she jams a needle in his head. And then we find out the Beaver was in on it. It's a double cross.
I told you not to push that Bible stuff, Phil. We were just gonna re-educate you to build alien war machines. Now, they're gonna dissect you.
Me too, Beaver. Me too.
I can't watch this.
You have enough poison coursing through your veins to kill a hippo. You will be dead soon.
Will it hurt?
Wait.
Phil's gonna be dissected. Slim saves Jones from Red. Slim says Phil taught him to do unto others as he should do to himself. Or
he has that line. He says, "Et tu, Beaver."
Yes,
Et tu, Beaver.
Yes. Also, Slim says that Phil taught him to quit drinking and to be a better father. Which, I mean,
in the van, I guess, on tour. Right?
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of deleted scenes in this movie too. You know, because these things they come up, and obviously because the important part of making a movie is the timing and the beats and keeping the attention, and you're telling a whole story. So honestly, a lot of recovery is fucking boring.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's hard,
It really is.
internal, boring work. So, it's not going to go into a movie. But so there's all these little things where I'm like, is there more to these backstories?
Right.
And I'm curious as an alcoholic, like, what's that mean? What did he mean by that? You know?
Right. Dude, the whole aspect of recovery is so, and I talk about John with this all the time, but it's like so much navel gazing. It really is just looking at yourself all the time and kind of cracking yourself open and questioning what you're doing. And so when we have the big moments in movies where the attic's finally clean and the sun is coming up over the beach and they've found their new strength, that's just like such a short, brief period of time if that even happens. Usually it's just, most of my recovery lately in the pandemic is me talking to John once a week on a podcast, like, yeah, or in a Zoom meeting, sitting there, we're looking at other people in their living rooms making coffee or taking care of their kids, so it is...
Oh my god, that blew my mind. I didn't even think about that. But because of the pandemic, there's like probably just Zoom meetings.
I haven't been to a meeting since like February.
Oh, okay.
No.
So
I've been
people
to
aren't
Zoom
doing
meetings.
That. Yeah, that's what I mean. Zoom meetings.
Some people are doing meetings like in parks. I don't think they are right now because the numbers are going back up again. But they were doing them out in parks with masks on and stuff. Outside ones. I think John did one.
I went to one, and it's just... It was cool, and I'm glad that it's there. Yeah, and so people are all spread apart, and then they were going to go back into the room, like inside, and now the numbers are back up, and it's like, are they going to let them inside? And it's like, I don't want to fuck with it. And it's like it's one of these things where it's come and go as you please. And they're like, well, we're only going to have 12 people in, and so what if you're the 13th person, you get locked out? Or they say, yeah, it's fine, and the next thing you know, there's 25, 30 people in there, and now everyone's squeezed in together, sitting on these old dirty couches. And normally, I don't mind, man. I'm not a germaphobe, but, things are just a little bit different right now.
Things done changed, yeah.
Yeah.
Bill the alien taught me to do unto others as we would ourselves. So I figured if someone's up to kill me, you got my back, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so taught me to quit drinking and be a better role model for my boy.
How did he do that?
Phil said it's never too late to be a hero.
Like this little part where he talks about quitting drinking, being a better father, and it's never too late to be a hero, I think is something that I glean from your podcast, and the reason I like thinking about these human behaviors that we have, why, like you said, cracking yourself open and being like, why am I doing what I'm doing? And I think nobody is the best version of themselves. I think there's always some kind of improvement or something that we could do to either be more present, be more open to the people that we care about. But yeah, I just thought when it's never too late to be a hero, I was like, oh man, you could put that up and just look at that every day and be like, yeah, like there is always a chance,
Yeah.
Madame kicks Jones' ass, but gives Phil the antidote, and now we get a weird scene where Phil is educating Madame about like the beauty in life, but it's all done through the scope of a rifle.
That was so strange. I thought it was stock footage at first. I was like, there's just a stock footage baby with a crosshair on it, and I was like, I thought it was funny. I could see where they were going with it, but I was like, and then when they pull away, these things are actually really happening. So I'm like, oh, that's not stock footage. I thought it was stock footage at first.
Yeah, it's weird. It's very weird.
Well,
and
again,
to
I
say
think
that's weird.
This is part of where I'm like, there's more to the character story than we're getting to see, right? Because these things are all getting accelerated. And so just because we're telling a story here, right?
Yeah,
right. We're closing all the loops up. Yeah,
right. So, but I like that, and I don't know if that was just because she had a sniper rifle, or what the Maybe
Yeah,
I
I don't know.
missed the.
It also seems
point
like
of
it could
view.
be a metaphor for something, but like that it's very, I don't know. It's just definitely fascinating. Then the beaver has a sniper rifle.
Yes, and we find out. You go ahead, but
Oh no, go ahead.
well, the beaver's a double agent.
Oh yeah.
Or
Yep.
did we already? We already
already did that
done
because
we
he
did that
already
one.
did
Okay.
the Et tu
Et tu,
Beaver
Beaver.
line.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And then Red and Blue take Phil to the big man with the whales. Phil refuses to build an alien war machine, so he's going to be dissected. We get a great alien in the background that's just saying "kill me" and banging his face
Jesus,
against
that little
the
puppet.
glass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kill me. Kill me.
That was where the gun budget went. Was
Yep.
to that little alien. That's why we had the zapper, because they
Yeah.
used that gun budget for the alien.
But luckily, the weather changes, and Phil goes through a brief period of ultraviolence.
Yes. Yeah.
It's what we've been waiting for to have happen. And then we get another one of I just love the goodbyes. Like Phil's
Classic
leaving.
movie goodbye. Yes.
Oh my god. The part where he just stands and looks at somebody and then just moves to the next person.
And who is it who starts? Does Jones start rambling about something? He's like,
Yeah.
I really gotta go.
Thanks for trying to save me.
The only person I saved was myself. The funny thing is, not so long ago...
I really gotta get moving.
Yes. It's so good.
And then it was
he takes
go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry.
No, the drummer, right?
Yeah, he takes Dave with him.
Mm-hmm.
And they
It's
go
like, "Dave,
fly
come
off.
on."
And then you
Really?
get the end. Yeah. And we get more I Wish I Was Alien, and then there's the great outtakes. And that's the end of Phil the Alien. So
Yeah.
So any final thoughts you'd like to share on this 2004 indie comedy?
You know, I really appreciate you suggesting that and inviting us, because I would have never have watched this movie, and it's almost, I'm really glad that it was something you watched as a ritual, because we get to kind of share that with you, because
Yeah.
it reminds me of John and I and Hedwig and the Angry Inch, you know,
Oh, yeah.
because that's another movie that would seem inaccessible to certain people, because people see it and go, well, I'm not sure about that, you know, like it's a musical. You
Yeah.
know, and it was something that John and I shared. Like, we just would get so low. I've probably seen Hedwig like a dozen times with John. Like,
Watch it
drunk as
over and
hell.
over and over.
Over and
get-
over again. And so it's great that you're like, you have something like that as well that I would have never accessed unless, you know what I mean? I would just would have been like, this is some low budget alien thing. I don't think I don't care. I thought it would be like a Mac and Me or something. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I mean, you sent us the movie link, and I think I like clicked it at first before I actually sat down and watched it, and it was the DVD intro thing, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh man, when is this from? Was this like 98 or you said 2004? And I was like, maybe 2002, and I didn't know what to expect, right? And I'm like, okay, how is this? Is it going to be a movie about a drunk alien? Like, I had no idea, because we didn't talk about what it was. You just kind of gave me very cursory Phil the Alien.
Yes.
Let's do this thing. And so
I was like, will you guys please come back on? And then you said yes, and I was like, all right. I'm
And it was-
sending you Phil the Alien.
so much, there was so many funny lines and like well delivered.
I love musicals.
And,
I love musicals.
well
yeah.
acted. I mean,
Yeah,
you've got-
I think everyone's performance is fantastic in it, and the comedic timing is wonderful. And if you enjoyed Phil the Alien, you should really check out Suck, which is the movie he did after this, because I'm getting a feeling, Jerry, you like musicals. Okay. So Suck is basically a musical, and it's about a band that's going nowhere until one of the members decides to become a vampire. And then it's about whether or not to sell out, essentially. And so it's like you have these great concepts. It's got Alice Cooper, Iggy Pop. Rob stars in it. It's got Alice Cooper's daughters in it. The drummer from Rush is in it.
Okay, I'll look it up. That's great, yeah.
Carol Pope from Rough Trade. Moby is in it as a like a punk band singer that throws raw meat at people, which is, you know, since he's vegan, that's very funny. It's wonderful, and all the songs kind of forward the story in a way that's very creative, and it's like, it looks amazing.
Yeah.
We watch it every October in our house. It's a good Halloween sort of vibes, but I mean, you see it and you're like, holy smokes! You see the evolution of like Rob and Phil the Alien like expanding and getting bigger.
Yeah.
He's now working on a straightforward horror film, so I'm interested in seeing how that works out. So.
Yeah.
You know what else I liked about the movie? And I'd be curious to know, like, did Moby use real raw meat, or what did the prop department have to put together for him to touch?
Yeah, I think it's like sponges soaked in paint.
It's like a pineapple with some food coloring on it.
Yes.
One cool thing is that they do all these sort of montage shots of Canada. And I thought that was really great. I love that kind of stuff too. And just panning over the skylines.
Yeah.
And there was a little homage, I think, to Evil Dead, where they're zipping through the forest really fast.
Oh, right,
where there's like the time-lapse forest stuff. So I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I was going to. My expectations were exceeded. And I definitely was like, oh, these little instances of somebody knows about recovery a little bit. Somebody knows about the program, you know?
It's interesting.
Like, so.
I mean, yeah. And I'm not, in this episode, I won't ask you about your dreams because we don't have time for John to burst the book out again.
Oh, God. Right, that's right.
But I do want to always touch on any common misconceptions that people have about either sobriety or recovery. Anything at all.
Want me to go? I'll go first.
Yeah, you go.
Okay.
You fired it up there, Johnny.
Okay. Well, I'll say I think that the one of the big misconceptions I think is that sobriety is going to be boring. And let's be honest, most of life is pretty boring, right? And that's why people drink in the first place, right?
Yeah.
That, for a lot of it. Bukowski said, why do I drink because I feel bad. I drink to celebrate something because I feel good. And what's the third one? I drink to make something happen. And so I think that in sobriety, when you remove that, and it's like, well, what do I do? And you start to figure out what to do to entertain yourself, to find other things to fill your time with, and not just fill your time and kill the time, but that actually bring meaning and purpose. Because I've spent too many hours in too many Canadian taverns, you know, places like that. You know what I mean? Both just with all of those people, and you know, I think that's a big thing that I have gained so much in sobriety that outweighs anything that I may be missing out on that's going on at the bar right now.
Yeah, I don't think you're missing out on it.
No, I'm not. You know what I mean? But there's that FOMO is always there, and I used to have it in my 20s.
Right.
Got to be out there. Got to be there where the action is. Let's go, guys. Come on,
I was
man.
I was like that in my 20s too. Like my friend Aaron that I mentioned that we would watch this movie all the time. It would get to be like 9 o'clock, and I'd be like, "What are we doing home? Like we gotta go to the bar. Like that's where the people are. Let's go see the people in the bar."
Yeah,
you know?
Last call, man. Last call.
Yeah.
So yeah, that sobriety is absolutely the foundation for the most enjoyable life I've ever known.
Nice. What about when people like the notion that if somebody is sober and somebody mentions alcohol or something, like they're like, "Oh, don't talk about wine in front of the sober person."
That's funny.
I'll fucking kill you.
That kind of we will. We'll literally beat you to death. But that ties into what I was kind of thinking about, that misconception, which seems to be this common trope in movies and in TV shows, is that the alcoholic or the addict is always on the verge of relapse. And I always find that to be kind of damaging. It's interesting. It's a great, interesting trope for a story because you have a wild card thrown in there. You don't know what old Drunky McDrunk's going to do. But like in real life, I guess there are aspects of my life where I could be on the verge of relapse, but it's not this dramatic thing. I mean, I know people who have had tons of sobriety time go back out and drink again or go back out and use again, but it's not one of these things where it's like, it's always sitting in my head. Do you know what I mean? Or it's always something I'm considering, you know? And I always push back. Whenever I see that on a TV show and they have someone who's sober, I'm always like, they better not fucking relapse by the end of this show. Like Castle Rock or something. And I was like, she better not relapse by the end of this show, you know? And then she does. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You know, like, can't this person just have depth of character and just be a recovering alcoholic? No, they gotta go do the... So to me, if you mentioned, even in early recovery, I was hanging out in bars, like sober, hanging out. I was drinking tons of Red Bulls in bars in early recovery, seeing shows and doing bingo because I had nowhere to go. I had nothing to do. The bars actually kept me sober because I had nowhere to go. I didn't know what to do. Yeah.
Yeah. And John, you worked at a bar when you got sober, is that right?
I was a bartender I got sober in July of 2015. and I worked in that bar until I was a bartender until I guess July of 2017 or 18. So 3 years.
You should write a
3 years?
book about that. I think that's fascinating.
Okay. You got it.
Let's scrap the other book.
I am working. We're currently working on a book, which I need to. I gotta get a couple more touch ups from Jerry. Nothing major, but he's doing illustrations for a book about my recovery. So
cool. Are you drawing John?
I've drawn him a few times
there's
for
one,
this
yeah.
book. Yeah.
Oh my god, I want to see that. Can
Dirk,
you
I'll send you. I'll send you a picture of my favorite painting. So in 2012, Jerry and I and a bunch of us met in Las Vegas. And wait, what was your original question before we go rambling on?
Me? Misconceptions.
Misconceptions. Okay.
Yeah, we were just talking about being in bars.
Oh, you were talking about working in a bar. But working in a bar, I'll only say that
mentioning alcohol.
It was a nightly reminder of what I did not want to do. I saw people get sloppy drunk, and it actually helped keep me sober. And I thought of myself as like, I just deal the booze. It's like a bank teller. Bank tellers don't all go robbing, right? So, but my favorite painting that Jerry ever did of me, I still have, and he would tell you, he's like, I fucked up the nose, man. I got to fix the nose one of these days. So he's not happy with it, but I love it. Yeah. I flew down to Las Vegas to meet. We were all going to meet up because we were living in different places at the time, I think. And so we all flew down to Las Vegas to party for like 2 or 3 days. I don't even know what the fuck we were celebrating.
It's the Pisces party.
So it was a Pisces party. So a bunch of us had our birthdays all within the same week or 2 weeks. And so we're in Vegas where you can just drink and drink and drink, and you learn.
And there was a lot of us. There was like 10 or 12 of us, 13 of us.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And you realize like Last Call's there for a reason, man, because we don't need to be out this late. They don't need. But so on the last day of the trip, as we're all leaving, Jerry hands me this giant painting of myself that he did with like a black and gold snake wrapped around me with like as a green apple.
Wow.
It's up here. You can't see it from the. I didn't know we were going to talk about it, but he's like, here. He's like, I did this of you, and I don't know what inspired it, other than maybe you just wanted to paint something, and I happened to be there. But he's like, mostly, I just want you to have to carry this on the plane with you home.
I wanted him to carry a picture of himself. I wanted him to get on a plane, hungover, probably drunk, like with a painting of himself on the plane, just to have to ride back to Sonoma or wherever he was living. Yeah, Napa. Yeah. It was literally like 40 hours of work just to inconvenience John. It was
basically.
And I still look at the paint. I'm like, I gotta repaint this thing because he's like, in my eyes, I'm like, this is awful. Like his face is all flat and messed up, and it doesn't even look like you. You look like Billy Joel.
I love it.
Yeah, I love it because they had lightning and a silk red bar shirt, and so yeah.
So
anyway,
yeah, that's great.
I can draw John much better now.
2011.
My daughter was a year old, dude.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Oh man. Well, I could talk to you both for quite some time, but in the interest of letting you get back to your lives, I guess we should probably wrap up the episode. I just wanted to say that A's for Alcoholics is the podcast. Green Camel Press is John's art and card company.
Yes.
How do people find that? Just on Instagram?
Actually, based out of Oregon, we are now partnering up with Original OCA, Original City Apothecary. And I think I don't know if it's Beaver Creek up there or something, is the nickname Original City. So if you go to Original City Apothecary.
I think it's called Joe Flaherty Creek up here.
So yes, it's go to Original City Apothecary. That's where our stuff is being sold. You can find that, patreon.com/A's for Alcoholic is where you can reach out to us.
Yeah, and Jerry, you are available if people want pictures of their cats or dogs or
anything, their children, their favorite couch. I'll paint anything at this point. If you give me a good picture, I will paint it if I have good reference. I'm at Jerry Wagner Jr. on Instagram. I took my website down a few years ago. I should probably put it back up again now.
And also you have stuff available on Teespring, is that right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, we're doing at Jerry Wagner Jr. I guess on Teespring or Teespring Jerry Wagner Jr. However that link works out. Yeah.
Yeah. Just put those in Google. It'll pop
yeah,
up.
It'll pop up. There's some cool shirts actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I agree. I have one.
Oh really? Thanks for buying one.
Yeah, of course.
We're doing new stuff soon. So yeah.
Oh yeah, I have the one with the the Why Can't You Be Nicer to Me?
I know, I should have got one of those too. I love that shirt. Yeah.
That's so good. As always, I'm Dirk Marshall, and this has been VH Us.